Hi, my name is Annalise Anderson, and here is my audience, and there, and there. The first juvenile court in the United States was established in Cook County, Illinois, and before its formation in 1899, it was believed that children 7 years and older were capable of criminal intent and were therefore punished as adults. The early 1900s saw massive reforms on behalf of child safety and care. Instead of viewing children as miniature adults, the juvenile court system is based on the principle that youth are developmentally different from adults and are therefore more amenable to intervention. That quote is taken directly from Shea Bilchik, founder and director for the Center of Juvenile Justice Reform at Georgetown University's McCourt School of Public Policy. So this idea of children being developmentally different has since been proven in the scientific world. These days, a consensus of neuroscientists pretty much agree that brain development likely persists until at least the mid-20s, possibly into the late 30s. According to Jenny Gainsborough and Malcolm C. Young, authors of Prosecuting Juveniles in Adult Court, An Assessment of Trends and Consequences, what really inspired the drastic rework of the juvenile justice system in the late 1980s and 90s was a fear of uncontrollable juvenile crime and a coming generation of super predators, which ultimately undermined the long-standing practice of treating young offenders as different from adult criminals, and therefore turned the focus to punishment and the transfer of child offenders from juvenile to criminal courts. The enhanced penalties have simply led to an increased prosecution of juveniles in adult court and another failed get tough policy, which is pretty much just unjust and harmful to children. And according to the PBS recidivism rates and statistics, it really does nothing to increase public safety. While the initial vision of the juvenile judicial system needs improvement, its core principles that were founded on the concept of rehabilitation through individualized justice need to remain true. The juvenile crime trends of the late 1980s and early 90s provide no evidence that young people had become more dangerous during that period than in the past. However, the one category of crime that diverged significantly from the overall trends during this period is murder committed by juveniles. According to Jenny Gainsborough, the increase in gun killings was tied to the development of crack markets in the inner city where fierce turf wars were waged and juveniles were actively recruited by the organizers of the markets. The prosecutors behind the push towards enhanced penalties for juvenile offenders cited that the system was being abused by drug pushers. The idea was that by punishing the children who were being recruited, the dealers would therefore stop recruiting children. Unfortunately, the system was already established, and by attacking the victims of the system, the juvenile recruits, it simply reinforced behaviors and circumstances that prompted the situation in the first place. And on the word of the PBS recidivism rates and statistics, it ultimately produced a revolving door that creates criminals and then punishes them. Many states have adopted this get tough approach to juvenile justice, but public safety is not the only driving factor behind their creation. Many of the children being prosecuted are being sent to private prisons, and their care and upkeep is not regulated, and they face a lack of food, they face abuse. The system that is created and the amount of care that's going into them isn't appropriate, it's not appropriate for adult individuals, and it's unethical to treat any human being that way. But it's especially heinous to realize that the troubled youth of America are being used as a means to create revenue for the state. According to Jeanette Figueroa, author of Juvenile Law, Complete History, many states have adopted legislation that permits younger and younger children to be tried as adults. All states have a provision allowing prosecutors to try juveniles as young as 10 as adults under certain circumstances. In some states, such as Indiana, South Dakota, Vermont, Wyoming, and Florida, children as young as 8 can be tried as adults. For example, Michigan's Juvenile Waiver Law of 1997 lowered the age that a juvenile can automatically be tried as an adult from 18 to 16. In adopting and administering this law, the state has taken away some of the judge's discretion in deciding whether a minor should be tried as a child or as an adult. Factors such as criminal history, psychiatric evaluation, and the nature of the offender's actions carry less weight when the judge is forced to enter an automatic adult plea. And prosecutors are putting these laws to use. An estimated 250,000 youth are tried, sentenced, or incarcerated as adults every year across the United States. That's 250,000 people. And most of these kids are nonviolent offenders. 2/3 of youth in detention are held for non-violent charges. According to the Campaign for Youth Justice, most are charged with property offenses, drug offenses, public order offenses, technical probation violation, or status offenses. And a status offense is a crime that can only be committed by a child, like running away. And then they're being charged as an adult for a crime that can only be committed by a child. This cookie-cutter approach pretty much removes the need for individualized justice, which is what the juvenile judicial system was founded on. By removing the discretion from the judge, the notion of rehabilitation completely becomes thrown off the table, because the juvenile offenders become nothing more than numbers and a means to an end for the prosecutors, and become a pawn in a political game so that the state can look tough on crime, when in reality all they're really being tough on is troubled youth. The states know that this method doesn't work, and the numbers show it. Juveniles who serve more time with adults have a higher rate of recidivism than those who serve with other juveniles. Moreover, juvenile recidivists from adult facilities were more likely to commit more violent crimes than their counterparts in juvenile centers. This statement is based off of a 1996 Florida study that found that juveniles transferred to the criminal system were not less likely to reoffend, but in fact had higher rates of returning to violent crime. But not all states are ignoring the problem. Among juvenile justice workers, according to LEU, author of Juvenile Recidivism Measurement Across the United States, Oregon has been a leader because they have been collecting comprehensive data on recidivism and positive youth outcomes, and for using that data to shape the policies that are affecting those individuals. The information has been collected and has been used to better understand a youth's risk of reoffending and what type of treatment programs would work best for an individual. For example, when a young man convicted of an adult offense began to act out in the custody of Oregon Youth Authority, he wasn't sent off to an adult facility, as was often done in the past. Instead, case managers looked at his history, which was a data-rich map of his background, his behavior, and his contact with the juvenile justice system. And his profile also included family information and personal behaviors with drugs and alcohol. The Oregon Youth Authority decided that based on these factors, he would be better staying inside of the juvenile justice system, where they enrolled him in a vocational program. The few states that are adopting these policies based on the information they collect and tracking these juvenile inmates has pretty much aided in creating a better and more effective regime and programs to create better and more effective people. Basically what it is that you get what you measure. If you're not measuring something, or if you're unable to measure it, you don't know if your policies, programs, and practices are having an intended impact, said Adam Gelb, Director of Public Safety and Performance Project at the Pew Charitable Trust. And most states aren't even tracking these recidivism rates of their inmates. So there's nothing that can be done if they don't know what's already happening. So pretty much at the end of the day, these get tough policies don't work. It was originally created as an effort to rehabilitate and protect children from the system, has become a moneymaker for the state and a political platform for prosecutors. By reinstating the original values of rehabilitation and reform, this problem could be eliminated. There's a whole market of people who are able to do this. All it will take is the states deciding to invest in their youth. Because the Get Tough approach protects no one and ultimately destroys the futures of children who could be rehabilitated, removing people from society that could have really become something great. Ultimately, what has happened is that the juvenile judicial system has forgotten their mission to save the children that need saving. And then they're still here. There they are. They